Hello boys and girls, welcome to my channel. I'm the Angel PT, and for today what I have in here is a very special game. It is Final Fantasy 15, and you might be asking, oh wait, but you already covered Final Fantasy 15 in your laptop, and only now, after so much time, you are covering the Final Fantasy 15 on your desktop? Well, yes, this is because the game initially wasn't working with AMD Phenom II CPUs or any CPU that would lack SSE 4.1 instructions, but the thing is, Square Enix did patch the game, and now Final Fantasy 15 is able to run in CPUs like your old Intel Key 6600 and Phenom 2 CPUs are now able to play this game, so it was a nice surprise. And if you want to try out, you can download the demo was also updated. So this is the settings that I will be using for this video. So I just used the standard presets, but I made a couple of changes, okay? And I will explain each other. So let's start with the model load. The model load came at the standard or average. I reduced it to low because this affects mostly just the distance you see the objects, but also affects the density of the grass. So using this on average was using a moderate performance from the GPU, and so I was no trouble in reducing it to low because we still have a lot of grass that we can use. So dropping to low was not a big deal, and still we had a lot of distance yet. The TRAM affects the textures of the game. This is my biggest disappointment in this game. It's that Final Fantasy 15 uses a considerable amount of VRAM. So people with 2 GB graphic cards will need to remain with low textures, because if you use the medium textures, it's fine, you can play fine, like for example for 5 minutes, but after that it will start to stutter a lot and the game starts to stop like 1 or 2 seconds and you can't do anything about it. So my biggest disappointment, it's because playing with the textures on low really penalties the quality of your own character's clothing, of many objects really get a low texture, and it's really painful to see that. And unfortunately, when I tried the average textures, I was like, oh my god, that thing is amazing. But with our graphic card, it is recommended to stick with low. Anisotropic filtering, it's fine. Geomapping is essentially tessellations, just don't use it, it's very demanding. The lightning, it isn't just lightning, the lightning affects the reflections of the game. So when you set the lightning to low, you lose screen space reflections in objects, you lose all the reflections from the water, and you lose some sort of a global illumination system that this game uses. So reducing to low is, well, it's not a big deal for me, but after you see that the water doesn't have any reflections, it's really hard to look, you know, and so because of that I just kept the lightning on the average. The shadows, well, I used the eye settings on this video, but you can even use low or average. The thing is, if you change the shadows more than one time in game, the shadows will get bugged, okay? It starts to have a lot of noise around of them, okay, on the borders of the shadows, and so when I got to the old track, the shadows were really bad. So my recommendation is don't mess with the shadows while in game, and if you change the shadows in game, just restart the game, okay? I used the eye shadows because I thought that the shadows were very bad in average or low, but after restarting the game I would see that it's not really the case. So just restart the game every time you change the shadows. So in this case you can earn 1 or 2 FPS if you drop the shadows. Okay, so the anti-aliasing, this is more of a matter of a choice. The TAA is more blurred, but I do prefer because it gets rid of all the jaggies on the trees and all the transparencies. FXAA, it's not that blurry, okay, it's much more sharp, and I know that many people don't like TAA, and in this game it is really aggressive, okay, so not all the people will like TAA. Motion blur, it's motion blur, I kept it off because it was consuming 2 frames per second. And the filtering, I did kept it at average, because if you decided to remove it or put it to low, let's say this way, if you decide to put the filtering on low, you lose depth of field from the cutscenes, you lose the bloom, so when the sun sets or when you see the sun's rising, it's really, if you have this on low, it is really, I don't know how to explain, but it feels really bad, okay? It feels like a natural, not vibrant or anything, so it's just it's just out of the place, and so because of that I decided to use it. So here are the results that I got. So if I use the average settings, I got an average of 30 frames per second. In my opinion, it wasn't bad, but the game spent most of its time between the 20s and the 30s, and I don't want that. Despite it's perfectly playable in my opinion, if you have the possibility to go with 30 frames per second, I don't see why the hell would you not drop the settings, okay? So that's mostly like that. For the low settings, we got a nice result. I got an average of 45 frames per second and the 1% of 35. I was expecting an higher frame rate on the lower settings, because the lower settings you don't get anything, not even ambient occlusion. And I was expecting higher frame rates, but it seems that the CPU started to bottleneck, so our CPU is not able to hold the game at 60 frames per second, and on the fighting systems the CPU starts to bottleneck more and less at 40 frames per second, okay? And with the settings that you are seeing here on the video, and that includes the shadows on high, which you don't need to use, okay? You can, like I said, you can use the low settings or standard, just restart your game after that. But even with the shadows on high, what I got was an average of 34 frames per second, a 1% low of 28, which is not that bad, and a maximum frame rate of 46. All these moments the game did use 2 gigabytes of VRAM, okay, so even with the lowest textures the game made use of 2 gigabytes of VRAM, and the RAM usage was pretty much between the 6 gigabytes to 6.5 gigabytes, so if you play this, make sure you close all the stuff that you have opened, okay? And that is only one way that you can enjoy textures at average. So if you have a 4 gigabyte graphic card from one of these that I'm testing in here, you can use the textures on average and enjoy the better quality. And I think that if you have 16 gigabytes of RAM, which not all the people have with this system, but for some reason if you have 16 gigabytes of RAM and you have a 2 gigabyte graphic card, you might be able to use the average textures, but I'm not really sure about it, okay? It's just because when I use the average, the RAM consumption starts to raise a lot. So it's raised to 7.3 gigabytes of RAM, and then the game started to stutter a lot, started to stop, started to be unplayable. And so I believe that probably if you have more RAM, you might mitigate a little bit those stutters, but even that way I fully recommend you to have 4 gigabytes of VRAM, or 3 gigabytes of VRAM if you, in this case that doesn't exist on these cards, but if you have one of these graphic cards with 4 gigabytes of VRAM, probably you can use the average textures with no problem, okay? So the GPU usage in all the settings was completely maxed out, with exception of the low settings. I start to get a little bit of bottleneck, and in the fighting sequences, for example, the GPU usage was between 85% to 99%. So it means that if you have a better CPU, in the low settings you will be able to get a little bit more better frame rate, okay? But apart from that, it was just fine. So on my custom settings, only 5% of the time the game did drop from the 30 frames per second. So I think that the benchmark was pretty big. It was pretty much like 15 minutes, so only 5% of that time the game did drop from the 30 frames per second. And remember that you can still drop the shadow quality, so I think the results are pretty good if you want a good 30 frames per second experience, okay? So guys, I guess that's all for now that I could talk about the performance, okay? But now let's talk a little bit about the game. Oh, and I forgot to mention something. Unfortunately, since I'm recording with Relive, and the computer is already giving almost all that it's have, so unfortunately there are some big drops in frame rate in this recording. Without recording, things doesn't get that bad. In this video there are at least 2 sequences where the frame rate really gets to 20 frames per second, and so those sequences, without recording, that thing don't really happen, okay? So don't be scared if you see 20 frames per second in this video, because without recording things are much more smoother overall. Okay, so now to the gameplay then. So the gameplay, what can I say? I never played too much Final Fantasies because it was pretty much exclusives for the consoles, and I always was a PC gamer. But I was never good at turn-based games or hybrid turn-based games, and so seeing some sort of hack and slash game, Final Fantasy style, I thought it was pretty nice, and the engine itself is amazing. and all this partnership between your friends in here seems actually something really great. So I think Final Fantasy 15 is actually a nice thing to see on the PC, especially with all these benefits. Now you have first person view and you can play with a keyboard and mouse that you want. I think it's really great. But for now I'm really out of time. Somebody did call me and I'm going to finish the video from here. Okay, so guys, thank you a lot for watching and I do hope to see you soon. Goodbye.
はい。
シドニーだけど、大事は順調？
ああ、今終わった。
よかった。悪いんだけどさ、ついでに人探しも頼めない？デイブってハンターが連絡取れなくなっちゃって、その辺の小屋にいるはずなんだよね。
この辺の小屋。ああ、わかった。見てみる。
シドニーからなんだって？
デイブってやつを探してくれって。
行方不明なのか？
あ、すぐ近くの小屋にいるらしい。手紙？
ドクター！こいつ！シャッター！大丈夫？
助かったぜ。
気をつけろ、来るぞ！これ囲まれたらヤバそうだね。
泣き言言うなよ。
俺だってやると。呼ばれてくれて。
呼んでねえし飛んでねえ。
冷たい！
とどめ。
無駄だ！
ほら！
無事だな。
はいはい！
行くぞ。
おい、あっちにも小屋が見えるぜ。
いや待ってくれ。提案がある。
なんだあいつ。
東鉄というモンスターだ。あの鋭い牙を獲物に突き立て巣穴から引き出して食べるらしい。それさ
調子いいじゃねえか。
当然。
早くて当たんないんですけど。と
そこに誰かいるのか。あんたハンターのデイブか。探したぜ。おい大丈夫か。
ああ、俺を探しに来たのか。ちょっと足をくじいてしまってね。なあ、近くに様子のおかしい野獣がいるんだ。ほとんど倒したんだがまだ一匹残ってる。できればここで仕留めてしまいたい。君はハンターではなさそうだが頼めるか。
ええぜ。俺たちに任せとけ。
恩に切る。じゃあ奴の居場所を詳しく教えよう。
いい判断だ。さあ気合い入れて臨もうぜ。
あ、俺たちが再び車に乗れる日は本当に来るのか。
不便だよな、やっぱり。
昼寝もできねえし。見て、あれじゃない？
デュアルホーンか。
デイブの言う通り変種のようだな。放っておくわけにはいかなそうだ。
待て、
なになに？
奴はだいぶ気性が荒そうだ。
そう？なんかぼんやりしてない？来るぞ。うわおお、やった、すっげえ。
さすが。
まだだ。うわ
さあ、からだぜ。
いやおっエグニス、指示。
大丈夫。
はっ、グラディオ。ナイスグラディオ。いや、よーし、頼んだブロックと。当たれ。頼もしいな。
しっかり敵を見極めて、もっと気を。
みんな、あとちょっと。こんなとこでやる？グラディオ、頼む。
さすがだ。
さっさと先に行こうぜ。
ああ。
ねえ、電話。はい。
見つけてくれてありがとう。レイブとも連絡取れたよ。
あ、
お疲れ様。こっちの整備ももう終わったよ。工場まで戻っておいで。
わかった。
さて、次の運転役だが。
ずっとイグニスでいいんじゃない？
だな。外じゃ燃料切れも命取りだ。
俺自信なくしたよね。俺同じことやる自信あるわ。
なら引き受けよう。
頼むぜ。俺も運転席は窮屈でな。
シドニー待ってるかな。レガリアもそろそろ整備が終わった。なんだ。うわ、やっば。でっか。あれ生き物？
あんなのがいるんだな。
規模が違うな。
すっげえ。歩きじゃ限界あるよな。オート育ちだしね、俺たち。
車が戻ってくるまでの辛抱だ。 と。
なんだ、しっかり歩けよ。
国内にないと困るんじゃない？
やっぱり店入ろうぜ。
ああ、そうだな。来ないのか？
任せたね。ほら綺麗になったでしょ。
こりゃもう汚せねえな。
よーし、じゃあレガリアと写真撮ろう。
大事に乗るんだよ。あ、そうだ王子。ちょっと届け物を頼まれてくれる？
ああ、いいけど。
ありがとう。まあ実はもう車に積んであるんだけどね。ガーリナへ行く途中にモーテルがあってさ、その荷物を店主に届けてほしいんだ。頼むよ。
ちゃっかりしてんな。
ノクト、せっかくの機会だ。整備もされているし、少し運転してみるか。
ああ、そうだな。
分かっているとは思うが、慎重にな。
行くぞ。
行こうか。
ハンマーヘッド、いい店だよね。
整備の腕は陛下のお墨付きだからな。
旅終わったらもう行けないよね。
あ？好きに行きゃいいだろ。終わる前でもその後でもよ。聞いた限りじゃシドニーもだいぶ腕がいいらしいぞ。
彼女に会いたいのか。
じゃ、そん時はレガリア貸してやる。
おお。いや待って、それやっぱダメだ。オート帰ったら俺車考える。
ここで降りるぞ。
行こうぜ。
また徒歩？
着いたぞ。
今日はここまでだな。
ここでいいか？よし、テント張るぞ。